In this video, you get a process to help you implement the efficient hunting framework. One you can use to get organized for a new season, a trip away or abroad, or a single outing. Welcome to the Red Kettle channel. Here you get a view under the bonnet. You can see what products we're working on, and I'll share ideas and tools for efficient hunting. Let's get to it. Today, it's all about the EPiPHany loop and how you use the efficient hunting toolbox. I shared the efficient hunting framework in the last video in this series, and I explained how I developed it to make more of my hunting time and budget. I developed it based on 4 of the lean manufacturing principles, and they gave me a step-by-step structure to translate lean concepts to hunting. And the resulting framework is a great model to hang more knowledge off. It's the root and the branches, if we use Elon Musk's learning metaphor. But the framework, as I presented it, is not a guide that helps you use the efficient hunting tools. To make the framework actionable, I wanted a step-by-step approach that could help hunters like you and me implement the tools and become more efficient. A how you get from A to Z type of approach. In my experience, any kind of friction will reduce adoption. It doesn't matter how dedicated you are. If the framework is not straightforward easy, you're less likely to use it, and that's a problem, because ultimately I believe hunting is a force of good nature if we do our part. And that means acting as stewards of nature, which I've spoken about in the past. And part of being a steward of nature is to be an efficient hunter. You implement conservation plans and you harvest wild food, ideally with a minimum of wasted effort and money, which leads us back to efficient hunting. But here's the problem. We're constantly bombarded with information, and at the same time, our brains are designed to conserve energy. So no wonder that despite our best intentions, it can be difficult getting started with new routines. That's what I wanted a solution for. Didn't have a big eureka moment. It's more kind of a deliberate look at all the components, the loops to be exact. The micro loop is about hunting in the field, so it might seem like a good start, but that requires pre-work. The mastery loop about reflection and relies on input and experience, which brings us to the EPiPHany loop, the middle loop. It's how you approach a hunting season, a hunting trip, or a single outing, and it's where I find the root cause of most of my own past hunting mistakes. For that reason, it's a most helpful place to start your efficiency work. The EPiPHany loop gives us 4 distinct phases. So far so good, but I wanted to turn it into a step-by-step recipe, which meant determining the exact actions that will help you move forward. The best way to do that was to answer 3 powerful questions. Why should you complete each phase? What should you do to complete the phases? And how should you do it? In this video, I'll discuss the why and the what parts. I'll save the how for another video. Let's look at the overall loop before we dive into the details. Why should you use the loop? Because it can help you become more efficient. Firstly, you'll organize and optimize the gear you use. You'll adapt it for the specific time and place you hunt, and you'll make sure you've got all the logistics in place as well. So what do you do to get there? You complete each phase and move on to the next, so you build on a stronger and stronger foundation and make sure all your choices about gear and how you use it relate back to the specific occasion that you're preparing for. Let's look at the 4 phases. Experiment. Why do you experiment? Because you need some way to decide what gear and skills are relevant to the scenario you're planning for. And it's not kind of a mad professor type of experiment. It's a structured effort where you evaluate choices and decide on the best options. So what are the steps then for experiment? I use a 6-step process, Dr. Seuss. I'll talk about that process in more detail another time. What's relevant for now is the output. So when you complete the Dr. Seuss process, you'll have a defined scenario, a defined process, complete with a description of how you'll hunt and the gear you'll use. You'll also have a plan for how to carry your gear and standards for how to use it. The next stage after that is practice. The reason you practice is to ensure you meet the standards you've set, which includes both individual techniques and transitions between them. So what do you do to meet the standards? You break each technique into actionable components. First, main phases, then individual steps and actions. You practice things separately, then everything together. You work until you achieve unconscious competence. Here's an example. There's more to it than that, but that's the overall approach you should take. Next comes the plan. Why do you plan? Well, you plan to match your scenario and your process to a specific time and place, a trip, and to ensure that you've got all the logistics support to get you out, to operate and get you back. So what does the plan look like? Well, first you define what success looked like for the hunting trip. You verify and update the scenario, you verify and update the process and the 5 T's, which means how you plan to hunt, the gear you bring, and how you plan to use it. You establish supporting elements and equipment, which include operational readiness, mobility logistics, personal care and communications. You also plan and perform rehearsals to check techniques and transitions are where they need to be. And finally, you create checklists and you plan all your inspections. One word of warning, the planning phase is not the time to introduce new gear or tactics. Your building blocks must be tried and tested. Stick with what you know if you want to succeed. Let's look at that in summary. Next comes hunting. The hunting phase is where it all comes together. You'll perform plan checks and then go and implement your plan, which means hunting efficiently and successfully. And here's a key point. The process you plan should be second nature. Your mind should be occupied with what's going on in the field. You run through the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide and act. And you're guided by the window of opportunity to keep you focused on execution. Hopefully, if your plan is solid and Diana is on your side, you'll harvest venison for family and friends and maybe get a trophy to put on your wall. Let's recap. The EPiPHany loops help you prepare for a season, a trip or an outing. You experiment to define the gear you need for a specific scenario. You practice to meet the standards you set for using your gear. You plan to tailor your process to a specific time and place, and to ensure you can get out, back and operate successfully in the field. And finally, you hunt to implement the conservation plans and harvest wild food. The overall framework is a great basis to help you understand the components of efficient hunting. And by using the EPiPHany loop, you have a step-by-step process for implementing them and unlocking efficient hunting. I hope this video made the efficient hunting components more actionable for you, even though we didn't touch on the how-to part of the whole thing. I also hope you'll use the process to become a more efficient and successful hunter, whether that means preparing for the next season, for a trip abroad or away, or for your next outing. I'll put a link to the full blog post in the description if you want more detail. Let us know if you've got any questions or ideas to share. Please like if you did, subscribe and switch on notifications if you'd like to hear more from us. Thanks for watching.